Okay, welcome to part 3 of creating our character counter web app in 3 different frameworks. We started with Angular. We then proceeded to make the same kind of app in ASP.NET Core MVC. And then today we're kicking off the Flask aspect of this series. So we're going to create the same kind of web app in Flask. And that was my idea, to make the same web app, 3 different frameworks. I thought it'd be fun and maybe we could learn something from it. And hopefully you enjoy it if you've been following along. And if not, you want to go check out the other videos. I have a whole playlist that you can go through. And if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. That way you don't miss any in the future. And I also set up a Patreon if you want to go check that out. It'll be linked down below. So today we're just going to talk about what is Flask really briefly. And we're going to set up our first Flask application. So if you're new to Flask, this is probably a good video to start with. You might need some supplemental material down the road, but maybe we'll get you started on the right foot. And then we'll just go from there. So there's a few prerequisites. You need to have a text editor or a code editor. In my case, I'm just going to use VS Code. It's my favorite. Next, you have to have Python installed. If you're wondering what version, I'm not in the right place. If you want to know what version I'm on, let's go ahead and check it out. I'm on Python 3.7.3. And then lastly, you need to have Flask installed. So pip install Flask. And I already have all of the necessary modules. And so what Flask allows us to do, it's a web framework to create different web apps in Python. And so what I want to do, I want to start off with, let's just create our very first web app in Python in Flask. Let's do the basic hello world, and then we'll go on from there. So from Flask, lowercase Flask, we want to import the Flask class. So import Flask, but the class is with an uppercase F. So let's go ahead and create our object now. Typically this is called app. So app is equal to Flask, and then here we need to pass in the current module being ran. And to do that, we can do __name __. A little bit of background, if you want to go to a different video I have where we talk about what is name equals main and what is that used for, maybe that'll shed some light what name does. But if you don't really understand, that doesn't really matter. What does matter is us setting up a route. And so the route we're going to use right now is just going to be a slash. And what we need to do is create a function on what gets ran when we go to that route. And then we also have to use a decorator to define that route. So let's create our decorator. So it's going to be the @app.route. And here is our rule or our route. It's just going to be the slash. So the route you initially go to when you go to the web app. And then below this decorator, let's define some kind of function. And whenever we go to this route, now this function below will get ran. So def test, I'm just going to name it for now. Let's return, in quotes, some HTML. So in my case, I'm just going to do an H1. And then inside this H1, let's say hello world, if I can type. And now the only thing missing is we want to run the app. So here we can say app.run. And this is fine and this will work. However, it's more Python-esque, I guess, to do if name is equal to main, then app.run. And so now let's run this main, and it'll spit out a URL. In our case, it's going to be localhost here, port 5000. And if I click on this, and it brings it up in the browser, we can see that H1 right here, hello world. So if we wanted to, we could go ahead and quickly define another route. So let's copy this, go down below. This one's going to be /test. This is going to be called test2. And instead of hello world, let's say another route. And let's run this again. And now if I go to /test, we see that function being ran. So there you go. We went ahead and we created our very first Flask app. And we use Python to define how a web app will work, which is pretty cool. Stay tuned for future videos. We're going to continue on from here, talk about different Flask things, and then eventually get into creating our character counter app. So thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video, and take care.